So something interesting happened to me the other night. Actually, just a couple nights ago, as it were. Ah! I was not supposed to ever use that phrase again, and I did. Shame on me. Doesn't matter. Anyway, continue on. Gonna forge on. You and me, Muse. You and me having a discussion. Because you and me haven't actually sat down and had a one-on-one for a while. A little tete-a-tete. Okay, so, as you know, I have... Dead Twin Sister is done. Done. It is ready for sale. It'll be available for people to purchase Tuesday. That's this coming Tuesday, December 12th. And I just sent Suicide Machine to the beta readers. No nervous, not nervous, no nerves setting in, none at all. I feel absolutely confident in the story that you and I created. And then it was time for me to start writing the next story. Now, you and I both know what that story is going to be. I am finally, and this isn't a comment on anything at all, but I am finally going to break away from self-publishing and indie publishing, and I'm writing a book with the full intention of submitting it to agents and get it published by one of the big 6 publishers. I know the odds are astronomical against it, but I have to try. And I think that, and the reason why I have to try is because I think I'm finally ready for it. I think I was probably ready for it a while ago, but now I actually feel confident that I could do it. There are other things going on, and we won't talk about those, Muse, because they don't really have anything to do with you. And that is actually not the point of my little discussion. So yeah, I go, usually when it's time for me to start writing a new story, I don't get nervous about it because I don't, because I always trust the process, but I think about it a lot. And a lot of times, especially when I'm starting writing a new series, which this really wasn't, I'll more on that in a little bit. I start kind of tearing myself apart the day of, wondering from whose perspective is it going to be told? Is it going to be told in third person perspective or first person perspective? Blah, blah, blah. All of the questions bombard me at once. And so the day of that I was supposed to start this new book, those questions hit me. And I wasn't quite sure. I knew approximately what this story was going to be, and I'm going to write it in the same way I write everything, without a net. I'm just going to start writing. But I had an idea of what character was involved, and I'm actually taking a character from another book, and that book is Punk Ass Punk. I'm taking a character from that book, and I'm going to put that person in a new story. And it could possibly serve as a sequel to Punk Ass Punk if it isn't picked up by a publisher, but the intent is to just take that character out of that universe and put him in something new, a new story that doesn't actually directly involve the band. So initially, I had full intention of writing that story from the perspective of that character, because I assumed it would serve the best. Well, funny thing happened on the way to that particular forum. I had made that decision, but about an hour before it was time for me to start the writing of the first chapter of that story, I was doing something, and I don't remember what it was. Actually, I do remember what it was. I was scooping out the litter box, or the 3 litter boxes that we have, and for some reason it hit me. Hey, maybe this needs to be told from a different character's perspective, a brand new character, and a character that could give different sorts of insights into the story than that other character could. I thought, yeah, that's exactly what needs to happen. I need to bring somebody new in and write the story from that perspective. So and as usual, I trust my instincts. And that first night I wrote the first part of the first chapter. It was about 1,200 words, and I wrote it. And it was kind of a struggle at first because it's a new character. I don't know this person yet. But I got it done. And I woke up the next morning going, what the hell? Why did I do that? This book has to be told from that original character's perspective because it's about that person. It's about that person's journey. And that third party can't give the insight to this story that the original character could. And that's important to me, to be able to help the readers gain an insight into the story that wouldn't be able to be had from either the omniscient perspective or an outsider's perspective. So that immediately, as soon as I woke up, I was like, I've got to rewrite that. I've got to rewrite it, and it's got to be from his perspective. Oh, I gave part of it away. His. So you know it's a guy. And now, if you've read Punk Ass Punk, you probably know who it is. But I'm not going to tell you anything about the story. But I can tell you that it is really timely. Really freaking timely. That's all you're going to find out about it for now. Well, and I guess I could also tell you that because I've mentioned the title on social media, but the title is called POTUS. That's it. That's all you're going to find out. Well, you, Muse, you know all about it. Because you're in my head, you're in my soul. You know. Anyway, so that night, I retitled chapter 1, and I titled that Scrap This. But at the same time, and I did what I always do. I went back and I reread what I wrote the night before, and I thought, well, there's actually some good stuff in here. Let's keep it. So I titled it Scrap This, and I went down and I started a new chapter 1, and I wrote chapter 1. And the reason why I decided to title that initial thing Scrap This is because that character is going to show up. And some of the things that character said are going to be necessary probably in chapter 2. Now, and I think the reason why that I wanted to save that stuff is, and this will give you a little bit of insight on how I write, is that I think that the opening of a book is so important. It's just like the opening scene of a movie or the opening 10 seconds of a monologue. It is the thing that initially draws the audience in. And if you can't draw the audience in that first chapter, there's going to be no reason for them to continue on. So I always do my best to bring my A game to that first chapter. I always try to bring my A game to every chapter. But there's a significant importance that I always place on the beginning chapter. So knowing that, I realized that I have to save some of that stuff because there's some darlings in there that I don't want to kill. So what'll happen is that because that original first chapter was told from the perspective of a third-party character, of what will become a secondary character, that inner dialogue will turn into actual dialogue with the main character. So that's how I'm going to save that stuff. But, and I guess the lesson here is that my original instincts were right. And I always follow my instincts. But this time, for some reason, I allowed myself to get sidetracked. Fortunately, it happened, the discovery of the wrongdoing happened very quickly. And I wasn't 10,000 words into the book and realized, oh my gosh, what have I done? Because that rewrite would be significant. This was just, it's kind of redo that first chapter. Mulligan, as it were. So anyway, the second I started writing, and here's another good bit. The second when I rewrote the second chapter, or the first chapter, I wrote it, and then the next morning I woke up going, wait a second. Okay. If I compare this character in this book to this character in Punk Ass Punk, they're not exactly, they're the same person, but there are certain qualities about that person that aren't the same. And then before I jumped on that, I said, hold on a second. Because I am going to be submitting this to a different audience, to agents, and hopefully get it published with one of the big publishers, I had to tone that character down a bit. If you read Punk Ass Punk, you know that only it limits itself because of the language it uses, and over and over again. And I decided that I'm going to try very hard to not drop F-bombs in this book, and because I want it to appeal to a wider audience, because I think what this new book has to say is very important. So I'm toning it down a little bit. So by the end of the second day, I realized, okay, what I wrote for that new first chapter needs to stay, because I wrote it that way on purpose. I followed my instincts. I made a judgment call and followed my instincts, and that's what came out, and that's what's going to stay. So this is new territory for me because of where I'm going with this book, of not only what I'm writing with this book, what I'm trying to say with this book, because it's so important to me, but where I'm targeting this book. So it's all new, and I have to approach it kind of with a bit of a different perspective. Perspective. That's what it's all about right now. So anyway, Muse, now you have kind of dug your fingers into the pie of my mind and pulled them out and licked them. And you know a little bit more what it tastes like inside of there. I hope that it's satisfactory. I hope that it's sweet and delicious. I hope you're not repulsed by the taste of my brain. I've never tasted brain. I will never taste brain. No, I won't. Anyway, Muse, you rock. There's a hair on my thumb. It's probably cat fur. Probably ruin that moment if you can see it. Anyway, again I say...